It is Friday morning. It actually isn't. I'm pre-recording this, but this is when I'm releasing this. So if there are any loyal followers out there, loyal listeners, you will be listening to this as soon as it drops on Friday morning. So what are we going to talk about today? In my last episode of Spilling the Anxiety Season 2, I promised you guys that we would talk about something a friend, somebody who is also in the podcasting world, and you can feel free to follow his Instagram account, which would be callsign CALLSIGN underscore Shulai SHULEI. So, in talking about our common anxieties, he said something to me that really it kind of popped, and I felt like I needed to do a podcast episode on it because it describes perfectly where I'm at with my life right now. Also, forgive the still hoarse throat. I have not, in fact, taken care of this problem yet. So, today we are going to discuss how everyone is the villain in someone else's life. We're going to be discussing the hero complex, I guess, quote unquote, villains, movies, TV shows, etc., and how, from differing points of view, sometimes the villain can be, in fact, the hero. But I think that everybody has a complex where they believe that, especially people like me, for a while there, it kind of just hit like, why me? Why me? Why me? I always have such good intentions. And when I was younger, I was always like, why me? Why me? And it took a while for me to realize that I have, in fact, done things that have merited the things done to me. And not always, but I do understand why, when you think about it from somebody else's point of view, it may seem justified. So my villains were actually potential heroes that I ruined their story. I'm going to try not to delve too deep into that because it's still a topic that is very, very sensitive to me. But that is what we are going to discuss today. So let's take a short break and then we will be back. Stay tuned. All right, everybody, and we're back. Okay, so this is a lot to tackle, and I'm going to try really hard to keep this at half an hour. So before I jump into this, let me just preface this with, I am trying so hard to stay dedicated to this because really I am at the least likely point in my life and least helpful time in my life to be doing this. I've got a lot of things going on personally, and while this blog is meant to deal with my anxieties and not deal with my anxieties, it's to talk about my anxieties in a way that may help others that are experiencing the same thing. I really, I kind of knew it before because I was experiencing where I would talk to someone who really just could not sympathize, empathize, anything with what I was discussing. And it was kind of just like, you're crazy. Versus now that I've found yet another person that doesn't know a lot about sympathy, empathy, and kind of what I'm talking about, it's like, wow, there are a lot of uneducated people out there. So this not only serves as an educational tool on this is a primary source, on mental health, depression, anxiety, and its consequences. But this is also a place where others who feel like me can maybe listen and just, this can be your church. So that being said, let's tackle what I was discussing earlier. So the villain. I'm trying to figure out how it is to say this in a way that makes sense. So I've recently discovered, or come to terms, not really discovered, that, see, I didn't believe that I was ever really the villain in anybody's life. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm really not a malintentioned person. I never do anything to intentionally hurt somebody. I may hurt somebody with my honest opinions. I may hurt somebody by not reciprocating behavior. But overall, I have never willingly even thought, like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do something to somebody because they did something to me. I don't even believe in revenge, really. I have had thoughts about it, but I always believe that everybody's going to get theirs. It's just not my job to do so. I don't want to play God, and I don't want to waste energy on exacting revenge on somebody that, to be quite frank, if they felt like doing what they did to me was even necessary to begin with, then they're no longer worth my time or my care. See, like, for example, like I bought my mom groceries because she recently had surgery, and the lady who was dropping groceries off to my mom was so rude. It was unbelievable. I got no text message from this woman that she was downstairs, and my mother lives in an apartment building, so it was very hard for this woman. Like, anybody who's from New York knows that you got to go through like several doors with keys and all this other business just to get into the building. And then she's bringing groceries and there's no elevator, so I knew it would be hard. But my mom was home alone, to my impression, and she just had surgery, so I knew that she wouldn't be able to do it. People who are in that situation, it's like, what the hell do you do? Do you starve? Because you have to get, whatever it is somehow. Anyway, the lady calls me and she's like, hey, I've been downstairs for 10 minutes. There's no way for me to get in. I've got other deliveries. And I'm like, oh, slow down. Let's calm down a little bit. If you needed assistance getting into the building, like, what would you like me to do? There is no parking. You're doing this in the Bronx. You already know this. So why didn't you prepare for this moment? I don't know what made you think that any location in the Bronx that you go to, you would find parking. I really don't. So, she was like, oh, I texted you. I'm like, no, you didn't, but it's fine. It's whatever. Give me 2 minutes to figure this out and I will call you back. I call my mom already like aggravated, and she's like, oh, I tell her, I'm like, the lady's being rude. Listen, is there any way that you can blah, 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 whatever, can we figure something out? Turns out she wasn't home alone, so she was able to send somebody down. And like, my mom is like, give me her number. And I'm like, it's really not even worth it. Like, the act of what I needed done was already done. You needed to get your groceries. There was a way already figured out. It's already done. Like, what do you need her number for? So you can, like, what, put her in her place, as if that's not something that I was capable of doing if I did want to do it. You haven't even spoken to this woman, so what purpose would that serve? And I'm that kind of person. If there is no need out of it, if you can't produce any benefit out of it, I don't even see it. And I'm generally a very giving person. Now, to direct that to today's topic, for all I know, while I'm sitting there thinking, God, this rude woman is sitting here and she's gonna like mess up my mom's groceries, blah, 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 whatever, I could have been the villain to her. To her, she could be like, God, I texted this girl. She's ruining my job. She's ruining my money. She's throwing everything off. I've got a doctor's appointment later. I'm not going to be able to make it now. She wants me to go ahead and do that. I've got back pain, so I can't bring all this stuff up. I don't know, whatever's going on in this girl's life. I could have been the villain of her day. My mother definitely would have been the villain of her day had she called. So the reason why I say things like that is because, like I said, recently I come to terms with the fact that there were things like, I think when I was like, how old was I? I must have been like 16. No, maybe 15. 15, yeah. I did have, I've always been somebody who's been very, I wanted attention. I've always wanted attention because I always felt like I didn't get enough. I'm not here to put excuses for my behavior. If I had to pick a reason as to why I felt like I needed so much attention, it would probably have a lot to do with the fact that I was very jealous of my brother and my mother's relationship growing up. Michael could do no wrong. He would literally, they would fight to the death, and he would do what I considered like the worst things imaginable. Mind you, what I consider the worst thing imaginable is pretty, it's an easy bar to get to. Because I was the kind of person that first off, I didn't even yell at my mom like about in the middle of an argument until I was an adult already. And even then it was more like, please just stop and see my point of view. It wasn't ever like, oh, I don't care what you think. I never looked at my mom in the eye. I never tried challenging her. And then when I did look her in the eye, it was out of remorse. So, but my brother could do no wrong. And every single time, God, he hogged all the attention in our house. It was ridiculous. I couldn't, there was no possible way that we could go a day without my brother having some sort of quote unquote exciting event at school. There was no way that, I could come home with really great news and really something that I wanted to share with my mom. But she was just always so exhausted from dealing with my brother that it just got to a point where it was like nothing that I could do could even win my mother's attention. It was just like, oh, that's nice. Let's talk more about it later because right now I'm dealing with XYZ. I think that along the way, me having attention, I'm an admittedly very clingy person. I also don't have a large group of friends. I don't have a lot of things that keep me busy besides my children. So when I'm involved with somebody, I am all consuming. It's like, hey, now that doesn't mean that you can't hang out with your friends. You can't do your thing. You can't do whatever. But will I personally go out and do anything? Probably not. And if there is a possibility for me to tag along and maybe get to know your circle or whatever, I would like to. A lot of people consider that unhealthy, but I've just gotten used to being like this for so long. So I was somebody who always wanted attention. And I adopted the mentality of any attention is good attention, which is, let me put this out there. If you are a young person listening, if you are that kind of person right now, please recognize it in yourself and stop. Because it will cause you to make mistakes with your life that you will hate yourself for. Do not follow this wave that's out there that, if you're a woman, you can do whatever you want and it's feminism because, men are the ones telling you to stop it. So why should you do anything to impress a man? This isn't about that. One day you have to look at yourself in the mirror. One day you have to admit the mistakes that you've made, and you might not be comfortable with it because you might not realize that these mistakes will determine the rest of your life. And I know that out there is this mentality that everything can be fixed and there's always something better. And, the redemption is real. In some cases, it's not. Not everything is redeemable. There are people out there that, if you kill somebody, you kill several people. If Jeffrey Dahmer came out and was just like, he went to prison and he came out and was like, hey, I'm choosing to be a better person now. I highly doubt that would go well. But to a certain degree, yes, things are redeemable. But if you ever run into a situation where something isn't, and you desperately want the forgiveness of somebody, and you desperately want to be recognized for the person you are now and not the person you were then, quit while you're ahead. So, I must have been about 15. Sorry, because I went off on a tangent. And I had, a boyfriend, whatever a boyfriend is at 15. I know that on things like Degrassi and TV shows, like having a boyfriend at 15 means like, you're screwing and, doing a bunch of crazy shit. But I just, there was just somebody that I spent all my time with. And one day he picks up my phone and sees that I was talking to another guy. Now, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like I was out here, sleeping with multiple dudes and, blah, blah, all this other stuff. But I certainly didn't, I received attention from any source. I was never the kind of person to be like, or, even if I did, I was like, oh, I have a boyfriend. I would still receive attention. And sometimes I would reciprocate, not because I actually liked that person, but because I liked the attention. And in order to keep receiving it, I would need to be interested. So, this is dark for me to talk about because I hate how I feel right now. But now looking at this at my age and with what I'm experiencing, I realized, wow, I could have very well potentially hurt that person, because later on down the road, he was older than me. Later on down the road, he hurt my feelings, and like a lot, when he went to go talk with somebody else. And when I say talk, I mean having sex with. It was devastating for me to find out that he was having sex with someone. And then, like, this person turned out to be like his girlfriend. Later on, he totally ditched me. It sucked a lot. And I was actually like, at the time, like, I was like, oh my God, this is devastating. And I didn't even bother to register like, crap, I kind of earned this because I did it first. I spoke to someone else first. Even though it didn't get physical, it was just like, I gave my attention to somebody else. So why in the world would he not? Especially because he's older. Older people move differently. It's not far-fetched, and I'm like upset. It took me a long time to realize, like, wow, I really did make myself the victim, when in reality, I got back a version of what I doled out, and I was just not happy with it. I was also the kind of person that after I met my kid's dad, I would ditch just about anybody that I was talking to whenever he came back around and he called. When we were doing like our on again, off again. Even if I was just talking to someone casually, as soon as he called, I would be like, nope, I'm done talking to you. And I didn't care whose feelings I hurt, because I, at the time I was like, I want to be with my kid's dad. A while after that, I met somebody who was the only person I didn't do that with, that I genuinely just enjoyed the relationship, and I was on my absolute best behavior. But aside from that, I'm probably the villain in quite a few stories. Now, I have villains in my story. I think last season I mentioned that maybe during the Texas shooting episode, that there were people, that whoever did that shooting and whoever's done all the shootings that we experienced early this year, they are now villains. And what they were doing was creating more villains. They were creating origin stories for new villains. Because these people would be so hurt by this trauma that they would go out and they would seek further trauma. Now, I realized also that while I am the villain of several stories, not several, that sounds bad. While I am potentially the villain of several stories, and I know of at least two, where I'm painted to be somebody I don't feel I am, or drastically misunderstood. I also have experienced having a hero complex. Now, one of the examples I could bring up, I was 18 at the time. I remember wanting to, me and my mom were just not getting along, because at the time I was dating my kid's dad, and he was my first adult relationship. So I felt like I wanted to keep it because he was very much so set up, and I just wanted to I wanted to be a part of that. My life had a lot of instability, and he looked like he could save me from that. And and I was just like, did me and this dude vibe? Like this is it. I knew he was, I knew he was just older than me, and there were things about how I was acting at 18 that wasn't exactly, we didn't sync up like that. He was the age that I am now, and now, God, I really do see it, because if I was talking to someone that age and they did the things that I did, I would be like, what the fuck is wrong with this person? So I knew that he wouldn't be okay with me sleeping over at another guy's house. I mean, who would be, right? But when me and my mom weren't getting along, I was looking for a place to stay. I was looking to get out. So that way I wouldn't, so I would be out of my mom's face. And so I had this hero complex where I would create these situations where I would swoop on in and show my good intentions, after creating a fucked up situation myself. So I asked him, hey, how would you feel? Because I'm asking you because you're important to me. How would you feel if I can sleep at a male friend's house? And instantly, the answer was like, no, no way, it's gonna be a wrap, blah, 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 whatever. No, I knew that there would be an answer along those lines. Who asks another man, can I sleep at another man's house? Now, with that, I had two intentions. One, I wanted him to invite me to his place. Just because it meant that he cared about me. Two, I wanted to create a thing where I was like, okay, I'm innocently asking you, but I'm also showing you that you can trust me because I'm asking you about this and not just doing it behind your back. Also, I can soothe your ego by letting you know, hey, listen, I would never do anything that you weren't okay with. Hence this whole thing. I seriously had problems. Okay. So I went about everything ever like all wrong. This is a good place to take a break. Let's take a quick break, and then I'll jump back into my stories. Stay tuned. And we are back. I've got to be honest, you guys, this is one of those episodes I want to pre-record. I want to re-record because I feel like there are so many other, I just thought of other ways that I could do this, make this more interesting. I'm like, God, I don't like that. But true to my authenticity, fuck it. You get what you get. So, plus it's like I said, I'm working ridiculously, and today is just one of those days that's like, it's really not it. This might not be my finest episode. So that was just an example of one of the things that I used to do, and I would lie about stupid little things, but just things that would paint me in a better light ultimately. I was definitely the kind of girl who liked to get someone jealous, very innocently, mind you, but I like that because it showed that you care about me, which is wrong, is so wrong. Please, everybody out there, heed this advice also. If you have to make someone jealous, or if you feel like you have to do that just to get some attention back, it is not even worth it. Just let it go now. Because you should be able to openly communicate how you're feeling without playing a game, without playing a mind game, without playing the tit for tat, without doing any of that. Anyway, so I feel like all of this started to build why I eventually became the villain in that story. And maybe everything that happened is my fault. Everything that we've been through, maybe it is a result of my actions. And I hate it because I don't want to believe that, because I'm not a bad person. But is it possible for somebody who's not bad to set things in motion that they don't mean to, that end up being very bad? It's like if you play what you think is a harmless prank on somebody, or tell a white lie, and they go off and make this huge decision or this huge thing based on, like, how about this? How about you want everybody to be somewhere at 4:30, but you know that everybody usually runs late, so you tell them it's 4 o'clock. And now whoever you invited is in such a rush to get there because it's past 4 and they think they're late, when in reality they're not late yet. That in rushing to the event, they get into a car accident. I would feel like shit. I don't know if that's just me, but I would really feel like shit, because I would be like, damn, they were rushing to get somewhere they really didn't have to rush to be. So I think it's just things like that that make me wonder what the things I did set in motion. Now, there are things in my life that I reacted to how other people reacted. See, to me, one of the biggest things at like between 18 and I would go as far as to say like 23, 24, was what things looked like to other people. When I got married, it was because I wanted to get married. I'm not going to say that my ex-husband wasn't somebody that I enjoyed my time with, that I stayed faithful to, that I was genuine to. I really did enjoy his company, and I had a really good time with him. But was he the person that I wanted to spend my life with? No, not at all. Not even close. And to be honest, I was running away from something when I did it. I was running away from a lack of commitment from somebody when I did it. And so when it came time for me to be divorced, to get divorced, see, everybody told me that I shouldn't have gotten married. They were like, are you sure? This is very fast. This is very this, very that. But because I know that I'm somebody that when I commit to something, I commit and that's it, I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. Nobody's ever going to find out. Nobody's ever going to know. It's so funny. That reminded me of that TikTok sound. They're gonna know. No one's ever gonna know. But in my case, just everybody found out, because when you get divorced, you can only hide but so much. So let me just set up my little thing here. So it wasn't when I got married, it wasn't because I genuinely just, all the stars had aligned and I felt the love of my life had arrived straight from the heavens, and none of that shit. It was just more like, this person is asking me to marry them, and they are a very nice person, and I think that I'm going to end up having a very nice experience with this person. It may not be like ball busting, earth shattering love, but it'll be nice. And I can most definitely learn to love this situation. And then I didn't, because you can't get into something that you don't want to get into and be into it wholeheartedly. You can be nice, you can make your bed and lay in it, and you can take it with a smile on your face, but it will not be everything you want it to be. And I don't know. I felt bad. I regretted it. Oh, I just want to put out there, I am most definitely the villain in my ex-husband's story. I ended up, when I get out of the situation, because I just want to point out that my ex-husband was in fact not the nicest person, but I also cannot blame him, because it was probably in response to me. There's something about being ingenuine that can probably, if you feel like your wife doesn't love you, yeah, that might piss a few people off. And I think that was the problem, is that he could feel it, that I didn't love him. And I felt so bad when it came time to get divorced, because from I do to I don't, it was about 10 months. And I was just like, I'm sorry. And I didn't know what else to say. And I tried to be very understanding as much as I could. about his anger, but we never lived together. We didn't share anything together. He was stationed one place, I was stationed in another, and I was just like, this should be easy for you because we don't click. And he had other afflictions and other people that he was talking to that made me believe like this should be easy for you. I don't even understand why you're doing this right now. But now that I'm older, I understand. I'm like, yeah, now he also has to go tell his friends and his family that he's getting divorced, and everybody's going to ask him questions he doesn't want to answer. And for me at the time, how that looked was like the end of the world. So I stayed married. And until I couldn't do it anymore. Even like a couple of days before the wedding, I was just like, the wedding is off. He had also called off the wedding. It was just a whole thing. And then we were just like, no, we told everybody, we did all these things. And so it was just like, no, it has to go through, at least for me anyway. So once I make a decision, I go through with it, at least back then. And that was, it wasn't my finest moment. So I am the villain of his story, and I regret being that person. Believe it or not, everything about who I am now, it was a work in progress. It was work that I did on myself because I wasn't happy with the kind of person that I was anymore. I wasn't happy with the opportunities that I let go because I was more concerned about what everybody thought versus what I really wanted and what I really needed. Now, to me, anybody that doesn't understand that, anybody that doesn't understand that trauma, anybody that doesn't understand those actions, they're the villains in my story because you don't know what it's like. And this isn't just like no man will ever understand what it's like. There are plenty of women that don't know what I'm talking about either. But I don't know. I engaged in a lot of self-destructive behavior. And so I'm going to take a minute to go through. I pulled up self-destructive behavior on Healthline because I trust Healthline. And to pull a few points to talk about, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand exactly how detrimental it can be to somebody's life. See, I'm not a bad person, but I've done a lot of bad things and they've been results of other bad things. And I think that people want everybody to take accountability for their own actions, which is fine. You should be held responsible for the things you did, and you can't always just, how do you say it? Like, you can't always just blame it on, well, this happened to me, so you have to eat the consequences of it because it's really not my fault. No, it is your fault. Acting that way is a choice, but sometimes it just feels like it's the only choice to make. And so you take responsibility from that, but you also try to heal the mistakes that you made, or heal the wounds that you created, I should say. So self-destructive behavior is anything you do to cause yourself and your life harm. It can be emotional, it can be physical, it can be both. And so there are things like suicide, which is obviously self-destructive, binge eating, gambling, shopping with money that you don't have, being promiscuous, which is a whole nother podcast episode, because I feel like the word promiscuous nowadays it has a very different definition. But let's just say risky sexual behavior. You can abuse alcohol, drugs. I don't know if you guys remembered my podcast episode with Bryony Best last season, but she talked about her addictions, and that's definitely self-destructive behavior because it wasn't doing her any good. You can, cutting your hair. And when I say cutting your hair, I mean like a la Britney, like going in the mirror, shaving it all off, having gone through something and going in the mirror and cutting off all your hair. That's what the fuck I'm talking about. Like the big job. Cutting your arms, anything like that can be self-destructive behavior. But there are also other ways that you can be self-destructive. While those are the more obvious ones, there are more subtle ones. So there are lots of people that hide in humor, and they say, they laugh about, oh, I'm so fat, ha 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 ha. They'll talk about their imperfections in a way where they're joking about themselves, but that's actually self-destructive because these are the things that they're the most self-conscious about. And it's kind of like when you hear people are, like they make fun of themselves so other people don't have to. That's self-destructive. Let's see what else Healthline is saying. Changing yourself to please others. I have been there. I have been a person that I don't even recognize in order to please someone else, just to be liked by somebody else. Clinging to someone who is not attracted or interested in you. I have been there. I have been there. Engaging in alienating or aggressive behavior that pushes people away. That's me. Maladaptive behaviors such as chronic avoidance, procrastination, and passive aggressiveness, and wallowing in self-pity. All of these are very subtle but very effective self-destructing behaviors. Now, a lot of people think that that's just, it ties into having self-esteem issues, but I promise you, when you do things to purposely push people away, it's kind of like saying, okay, I'm going to push you away, push you away, push you away, because I want you to say, I'm worth it and hold fast to me. Let me tell you guys, that shit doesn't work either. So, any risk factors for self-destructive behavior would include low self-esteem, social isolation and exclusion, which I definitely experienced being bullied as a kid, emotional or physical abuse, which I have experienced, childhood trauma, neglect, abandonment, or alcohol and drug use. If you have one of the self-destructive behaviors that I mentioned, you're more likely to experience several or more than one. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a mental illness, but they usually go hand in hand, and they are more likely in people who have mental illness, or mental conditions, like anxiety disorders, depression, eating disorders, PTSD, etc., etc. I wouldn't say that you have to go to a doctor to be diagnosed, but there are a lot of people who know that you're doing something because you're in a bad place in your life, and you just feel like you want to feel something that's worse. Now, Healthline says that it can increase the risk of poor mental health and premature death, which I can totally see. There are things with my life that I've done that honestly, I don't know how the fuck I look at myself in the mirror. I don't want to anymore. And it kind of contributes to why I feel about myself the way that I do. It's just not a good thing. And I know that just say, well, just stop. A lot of people don't realize how hard it can be to not do something like that. Because when you've been conditioned to believe of yourself a certain way, and when you're kind of on a roll, you can't stop. It takes someone else to hold your hand and be like, listen, it's okay, stop, I'm here. But when the stuff that you can do during self-destructive behaviors, they can be ugly, man, and sometimes it will push away the very people who you want to support you. And sometimes you make it very hard for those people to be there. And you're kind of just banking on, like, I know it's hard right now, but please come in here and save me. And then they don't. Which is fine, because you push them away. That's what's supposed to happen. But also, it leaves you in this abyss where you just go further. And once you hit rock bottom, it seems like the only thing that's left is death. But, this is why I've experienced that there are mistakes that will last you a lifetime. But I still personally am not that person. And I want to say to the people in my life that if you feel like you're going through something and you're pushing me away, I'm going through shit myself. So maybe I might not be the friend to save you or the person to save you. But please don't do this. Because as someone who's going through it, I'm going to tell you right now, you'll wade out into that sea hoping for someone who cares enough to save you, and they won't. Because you will have done so many bad things that they won't care about you anymore. Love isn't eternal. Love isn't, I'm seeing shit where people are like, oh, love lasts forever and no matter what, love will be there to save you. No, you push that love away enough and you abuse it, it won't come back to you. Some may argue that that means that the love isn't real. Some may argue it was just time. And this is where redemption comes in. You can either redeem yourself and you can get that back, but in my experience, it's not true. So just be careful with what you guys are doing, because the actions you make, even if redemption is real, you may not get a chance to be the hero of the story once you become the villain. I mean, look at people like the Joker. The Joker had some very valid ass points. All right, let's calm down for a second. You grow up thinking that Batman is the hero until you realize this is a dude, a billionaire, running around in tights, saving Gotham from crime, when it's kind of like, okay, who appointed you to do so? You don't think that the people that he's killed or the people that he put away, like, you don't think any of those people have families. You don't think that to the villains, Batman is the villain. They are impinging on their way of life. Maybe they just robbed that bank because they need the money to feed their kid, or somebody's grandma's dying of cancer. I don't know. And the Joker sheds light on that. As a matter of fact, better than the Joker, who really puts that out there is Harvey Dent. Okay, he is fed up with crime. He is fed up with nobody doing anything about it, and in turn, he becomes a villain. And isn't that what happens to us, like, every day? That eventually there's one person out there at least every day who's just like, you know what? I've eaten enough shit. Being the nice guy has gotten me absolutely nowhere. So fuck this. I'm not being nice anymore. How many people out there say that the reason why they thought around and they break hearts and they do all this other stuff is because they were faithful to somebody once, but then it didn't work out. So, fuck the rest of the world now. Don't let somebody turn you into a villain. In Spider-Man No Way Home, you've got, what is it, Jamie Foxx's character, you've got the Goblin, you've got Doc Ock, and the Goblin makes a valid point. It's like, why do you feel that you can save me? Like, if this is my problem, if this is what happened to me, let me go. And the Goblin is the villain, but it's kind of just like, if Norman was okay with being the villain, why not? Norman only became that way. Norman Osborn wasn't like that. The chemical made him that way. But the same way that we all become more of ourselves, when you become a villain, your motives become clear. There's an origin story behind everybody. Look at Maleficent. All right. She basically grew up in love with this guy. He takes her, he swipes her V card, and then goes off to the castle to go marry whoever the fuck, and completely ditches her and abandons her. And then that guy's daughter ends up being like, her savior, I guess. She ends up loving that child and treating that child well and all this other stuff. But let's be real, the reason why everybody thinks that Maleficent is such a bitch is because, she looks evil. But the reality of it is, when she was nice, nobody was fucking with her. That shit didn't work out for her. Is she still miserable as a villain? Yes. Do you still see the niceness in her shine through? Also, yes. But it doesn't mean that she's ready to eat shit again. I don't know. I'm coming to terms with a lot about my previous actions, and it doesn't, see, there are things that let's say, what's my favorite dessert that I went a long time without eating? I went a long time without eating flan, and not just regular old homemade flan. I'm talking about the cheap bullshit $1.49 in the back of the fridge, at the supermarket or the corner store or the bodega. Fucking Goya flan. All right, I love that shit. I love me some Goya flan. Now, that's my favorite dessert. Eventually, I got into this health kick where I was just like, it's really bad for you and all this other shit. So I stopped eating it for a long time. Does it mean that I loved it any less? No. But does it mean that I was scared too because I didn't want to pack on the pounds and I didn't want to fucking destroy my life? Yeah. But then eventually I came back to it because I was being stupid. So I know that that's not gonna make sense to a lot of people, but it's just to say that it is possible to shelf how you feel. It is possible to to have these healing feelings, and I'm going off on a tangent and I'm not making sense because I'm being vague. I said I was going to try not to delve into my personal life as much as possible. And what I'm doing is I'm delving into it and then not giving you guys all the details. So that's why it sounds weird. But, I mean, I hate that I'm the villain of somebody's story because I've always tried to be good. I've worked very hard to become a better person. And to know now that being a better person did nothing for me, and it's just going to secure my eternal loneliness. It's rough. It's a hard thing to accept, and I want to apologize to anybody that I ever hurt if anybody gets an opportunity to hear this, because no one deserves that. Because I don't want to be a part of your origin story, because I need to know that if it's healing in any way whatsoever, I'm sorry. Because you deserve better, not because you did anything for it, but because everybody deserves to be treated better. All of us. You go on Facebook, you go on Instagram, you go anywhere every single day, and you see people putting up memes like, why are all men, blah, blah, whatever, and people lie and people scheme, and all of this is happening, and you got people out there that are the side chick or the side dude, but they don't want to be cheated on themselves, or maybe the only reason they're okay with that is because they've been cheated on too much. And it's just eventually you've got to be like, yo, what are you doing? Why are you being the very thing that you think is wrong with the world? Nobody ever thinks that anybody should lie and scheme and cheat and all this other shit, but everybody does it. Most everybody does it. And it's like, if you want the entire world to be a better place, then you should probably play your part. And if everybody played their part, then fuck yeah, we would all be a better race of people. But we're not. Believe it or not, there are people out there that don't want racism to end. There are people out there that think that everybody should just cheat on everybody because fuck being faithful to anybody. There are people out there that feel that way, and then the people that are like me, they're broken and cowering in a corner, not contributing to society. So what do you do? But that being said, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to an episode that, in all honesty, I'm so scared to listen to because I am afraid that it really didn't make any sense. But I hope that everybody got a kick out of my rambling, and I actually, if this goes out the way that I want it to, I have an episode on something very interesting next, which is polyamory. Okay. I was recently introduced to the idea. Oh God, that sounds bad. Like I was into it, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. It's just not for me. But I was told about the idea and to discuss it. And what did I think about it? And I realized that my beliefs rooted in monogamy, don't really support it. So I wanted to talk with somebody who is into that lifestyle so that maybe we can get insight if there are still people out there that believe in serial monogamy like I do. So thank you everybody for listening. I know I said I was going to keep this half an hour. Sorry y'all, I lied. I hope you have a really long ride to work. Take care, and I will see you at next episode. Please feel free to follow me on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at powherpoetry, POWHER_POETRY. And you can find me on Facebook under my name, Angel Bosques. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you at the next one. Take care.